Welcome, everybody. Can we have a big cheer? Incredible, incredible. Just want to say a huge thank you to everyone coming out today. We're sending a real message, and this is just the start. This is not the end. It's not about us all just coming out here today. It's about us building something together, because we are sick of us all struggling day to day. The most marginalized communities are getting blamed, and it's causing incredible division in our communities, and we need to make them pay. The billionaires, super rich, and corporations have had a free reign for far too long while all of us suffer. So, just want to say a huge thank you and know that when we come out again and demand that we make them pay, there's going to be twice as many, thrice as many people down Whitehall making that noise so Downing Street can hear. We've got an incredible lineup of speakers coming up over the next hour or so, and we'll guide you through that. My name's Tyrone Scott from War on Want, and
I'm Izzy from Global Justice Now. Thank you everyone for being here to make them pay. We've got 3 demands that we're marching for, and before we get on with our amazing speakers, I want to cheer for each one. We want to tax the super rich. Nice, nice. We want to protect workers and not those professional exploiters, billionaires. And we want to make polluters pay. All right, thank you everyone. We've got some great speakers.
yes, we won't take up any of your time with us. We're going to introduce our first incredible speaker, Faiza Shaheen, Director of Tax Justice UK. Incredible voice, tackling wealth inequality, and such a pleasure for us to have Faiza join us today. Big noise for Faiza Shaheen. Actually, before that, so sorry. We have an access announcement, which I forgot to do. I remembered the one earlier. So, thank you for being here. Hope you're all well. And stay for the rally, and we want it to be as inclusive as possible. We have an accessible viewing area here at the front. If you need the accessible viewing area, we have some chairs as well. So it's just here. The first aid point is just here to the left. You can see that there. And we also have a quiet space and the well-being volunteers just over here as well. They're doing a big wave. We have some blankets, weighted blankets, ear protectors, and rain ponchos, although hopefully the rain is just about going to stay away, and a defibrillator, but that's not an invitation, but just in case, you've got a defibrillator as well, which we hope is not going to be needed. So if you need any support, speak to any steward or any of these lovely people. We'll make sure we get there. So thank you, and let's go another time, the wonderful Faiza Shaheen.
Oh gosh, hello. Do you know, I just started crying because I met Brian Eno behind stage. And I was there at the concert. I don't know if many of you were at the Palestine concert this week, which was, Anyway, big up for Brian Eno. Thank you so much for coming today. This moment demands so much of us. I was here earlier in the week at the Stop Trump rally, opposing our government's whining and dining of an authoritarian, a genocide-supporting, lying, deceitful, horrible, all the bad words president. And last week, I came into central London with my 1.5-year-old, first thing in the morning, but rushed back by midday because I didn't feel safe in my own city, when I knew that there were hundreds of thousands of people marching from the far right with Tommy Robinson leading them. And this time, 2 weeks ago, I was here at a Palestine march where just behind us, over 800 people were arrested for peaceful protest. And today, we're here because we want a new economic settlement, one that means that every person in this country is able to live a decent life, banishing the eat or heat dilemma that so many face, and placing the tax burden on the very richest. My friends, we are in the fight of our lives. And it would be wrong to think that these battles are not connected. Because when you look behind the curtains of these problems, there are the same rich and powerful elite ensuring that algorithms spread hate and lies over unity and truth. The same people funding the fascists, protecting the interests of the defense industry, and lobbying government to block taxes on the super rich and the big polluters. And I've been close enough to power to see how it really works. When I was first selected as a Labour candidate, and you may know the story of how I was blocked, and I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest, I was immediately emailed by the likes of Bupa and Barclays banks. This is how they work. They are constantly lobbying in the background. So when we demand that the richest pay more, it is, of course, about raising revenue for our crumbling NHS and to strengthen our welfare system. It is about reducing inequality, but it's also about denting their power to curtail democracy and to undermine our ability to have a say in what matters, in the policies that need to change. My friends, in this country today, people say there are two top issues: immigration and the economy, with recent polls showing that immigration is edging ahead. Is it any wonder that when we are constantly bombarded with hyperbole about people risking their lives to cross the channel from countries like Iraq and Afghanistan that we had a hand in destroying, from countries like Sudan who are suffering from famine and displacement? We hear so much more about those 45,000 odd people that cross every year than the hundreds of thousands at the very top of our wealth spectrum who are preventing a fair tax system and hoarding billions. We can be dismayed that the small boats take up people's minds, but we should also be glad that despite everything, the economy features at the top of the list too. And every time we ask people if they support a wealth tax, more than 70% of people say yes. It means that actually, despite all the propaganda, a lot of people are rejecting the division and see through some of these lies. And it's up to us to move that dial towards the economy and away from hate. We need to be clear who the true villains are. Those that have polluted our seas and our air while enjoying tax cuts and subsidies. Those who use the British Virgin Islands to money launder, buying properties in London, using shell companies to avoid paying taxes. They use our homes as piggy banks while homelessness soars and the housing crisis tightens. Villains like Graham King, who made millions by overcharging for these hotels where some of our most vulnerable asylum seekers are, channeling that money via a company called Clear Springs to end up in Dubai. These are the people ruining our country. These are the people who hate our country. My friends, 60 years ago, my dad arrived here from Fiji, the island on the other side of the planet, once in the British Empire where the sun never set. He left literal paradise to come here because he thought it offered him hope. And whilst, of course, he suffered many hardships because of racism, as a car mechanic, he was able to buy a house on a single income and fend for his family. But in the 60 years since, our country has been stripped of ownership of our water, of our electricity. Our schools have been sold off to academy trusts. Our council housing stock diminished. Today, a man like my father working in a manual job without a bank of mum and dad to rely on would never be able to afford a house in Walthamstow to fend for his family. And this is what lies at the heart of the crisis of masculinity, of why so many men were here last week. My friends, it's time we took back what's ours. It's time that those who have stripped us of our necessities gave back. It's time we make them pay. And look, I have a favor to ask you, and I know you're already out here and probably do lots of other things. But look, in an age when the algorithms and the billionaires own our press and want to divide us, that don't want us to speak to each other and have human connection, my plea to you, that as brilliant as it is that you're here today, to go back and organize in your communities, to speak to people that you don't necessarily agree with, whether it's at the school gates with your kids, whether it's you're volunteering for the renters union, whatever that might look like. Please go back. You are the agents of change. And I know many of us might be disappointed by what we've seen politically this week on the left, but it's a reminder that no one person, no two people can lead this movement for us. You are our hope, and I have 100% faith in you. Thank you.
One more time for Faiza Shaheen. Thank you. Now, going to go straight into our next speaker, someone I'm very excited to introduce, somebody who's made a lot of waves over the last month or two and a lot longer beyond, is the new leader of the Green Party, Zack Polanski.
Friends, since the pandemic began, billionaire wealth in this country has doubled. Our public assets have been stripped away, and we are here with one main message. It is time to tax the rich! Don't let anyone try and tell you that there is a battle between climate justice and workers' rights. There is no environmental justice without racial, social, and economic justice too. Now, don't get this twisted. I'm the leader of the Green Party. I don't fly, I'm vegan, and I don't drive. But, and it's a big but, I have the privilege and the time to make those choices. Don't let anyone tell you you can't be an environmentalist and drive or not be vegan. If you can make those choices, make those choices. But do not let that distract you from the real problem here. Government, big business, multi-millionaire and billionaire media trying to distract us, trying to divide us, but we will stand together. The problem is not people who are just trying to get by. The problem is not people who are trying to do their best in life. It is time to call time on billionaires. It is time to call time on billionaire media organizations. It is time to call time on this genocidal Labour government. Thank you, by the way. You're doing very well keeping up. Instead, it is time for a country where we insulate every single home that needs it. That will keep homes cool in the summer, warm in the winter. It will create jobs that can be in the public sector, paid properly, people treated at work with dignity and care. It is time to invest in renewables, in sustainable energy. It is time to invest in communities. It is time to say, when they come for one of us, they come for all of us. And friends, we will stand together. Finally, we know that when workers and when people who are out of work, people who are disabled, people who run small businesses, people who run medium-sized businesses, these people should not be fighting with each other, nor the migrant community, nor the trans community. We must remain focused as the 99%. We will challenge power and wealth. We will challenge those who maintain the status quo. But friends, together, when we organize differently, when we communicate differently, and yes, for some of you, when we vote differently, that is how we're going to change our towns. It's how we'll change our cities. It's how we'll change our country. We will do this together. Tax for rich, solidarity. Thank you.
One more time for Zack Polanski. Beautiful. So the next person I'm very excited to introduce, almost needs no introduction, but artist, musician, producer, activist, and general legend, Brian Eno.
Thank you very much. I'm boringly going to read my speech because I want to stay within 5 minutes. And I'm nowhere near as volatile and combustible as Zack, so it's going to be a boring 5 minutes. So just settle down and be quiet. People who are wealthy are inclined to think it's because they deserved it, because they're naturally superior to poorer people. Even people who've inherited their wealth tend to believe that. In fact, particularly those people. Trump, speak up. They're saying speak up. Can you turn me up a bit? I can't speak any louder, sorry. The wealthy have the least interest in changing the status quo unless the change is in their favor, unless it's going to make them richer. Wealth is a great intractable lump of social inertia, a set of vested interests resistant to social change unless it's in their favor. Unrestrained capitalism is a feedback system where the already rich get even richer and the already poor stand almost no chance of getting on the ladder. Neoliberalism, in the naive belief that the unrestrained creation of wealth was the single most important function of society, dismantled the checks and safeguards that were intended to keep the whole system within the bounds of sanity. It's as though we designed the fastest car ever built and then decided it would be even better if it didn't have any brakes. Unfortunately, the analogy breaks down because it's not the drivers who suffer when this super fast vehicle crashes, but everybody else. The very wealthy are also the most insulated from the chaos they make and the messes they leave behind. If you're very rich, you have to be incredibly dumb not to get richer. If you're rich, you can take risks and invest in things. If you're rich, you have the time to ease to think and to plan. If you're rich, people lend you money. And if you're rich, you can get governments to listen to you and then change the rules to make you even more rich. Elon Musk claimed, and many people believe, that it was the almost $300 million he invested into Trump's campaign that won the presidency. Just think about that. At the time, $300 million represented about 0.1% of Musk's wealth. That's 1,000th of his wealth. If you are earning an average income of $38,000 a year, 0.1% of that would be £38. So it's that small a proportion. So, you know, if you were offered for £38 to change the way government was run, you'd probably take it, wouldn't you? That proportion of your money is negligible, and yet it enabled Musk to skew the whole of American policy in his favor. Is it any wonder that over 60 billionaires contributed to Trump's campaign? For a handful of small change, they could and did get laws passed that doubled their wealth almost overnight. Just as the extremely rich come to believe they're intrinsically superior, the poor come to believe they're worthless. They see the whole system as being set up against their interests, which is not a bad perception. And when a rich person like Paul Marshall buys a radio presence like GB News and incessantly reminds them of what a shit condition they're in, and then tells them who to blame, you have the recipe for fascism. It's divide and rule. Get the poor and the desperate fighting it out with each other, and your fortunes will be safe. This self-feeding process has to be stopped. It's time to tax the rich and to put caps on wealth so that people can't even become billionaires. That means taking apart the whole dark infrastructure of tax evasion schemes that has made London the money laundering capital of the world. I don't know if you know that, about 60% of the corrupt money in the world passes through London and is laundered by lots of ex-public schoolboys who think that they're some kind of service to the realm. We have to reduce the capacity of the wealthiest to distort government in their favour. We have to untilt the playing field so that wealth doesn't always trickle towards the already rich, but back into the society that actually generated it. And it means understanding the ecosystem we live in, understanding that becoming incredibly wealthy is a net cost to the rest of society, not a net gain. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time for Brian Eno. Incredible. So now the next speaker, very excited to introduce someone I had the pleasure of working with, campaigning with, organizing with for years, and someone who's been a voice for justice, for an incredibly, powerful voice for justice, and always is there to speak the voice of the voiceless. The next speaker, Director of Friends of the Earth, Asad Rehman.
Thank you. Friends, we stand at the edge of catastrophe. The very systems that sustain life are unraveling. Killer floods, droughts, famines, destroying lives and livelihoods. Half the world locked into poverty. Billions go hungry. This is not natural, it's not normal, and it's not because of a lack of resources, or it's not because we don't have enough to go around, and it's not because we don't have the solutions. It's because of greed, because of a system that's put profit over people and planet, a system that allows billionaires to hoard obscene wealth whilst the world burns and the poor suffer. This is a crisis of justice, a crisis of inequality, a crisis born of colonial plunder, of an economic system that says black and brown lives, indigenous lives, working class lives are disposable. And it's an injustice that fuels this climate crisis, amplifying every inequality that has been baked into our society. It's a crisis enabled by and built by fossil fuel companies, enabled by rich governments, and in the service of billionaires. A system soaked in oil and exploitation. So now is not the time to make empty calls to them for climate action. They don't need to be told about the climate crisis. They've always known. They were the first to know. They lied, they lobbied, and they carried on making billions while ordinary people paid the price with lives, lands, and their futures. And friends, now the alarm bells are ringing, louder and louder. Nature is being trashed. Species are being wiped out. We lurch from one disaster to the next, and it's the poor who are being overwhelmed. And that is not just in the global south, but here, in one of the richest countries in the world. 4.5 million children growing up in poverty. 2 million pensioners afraid to turn on their heating. 8 million working people struggling to make ends meet. Nurses, teachers, factory workers relying on food banks. And what do they offer us? They tell us to recycle while opening new oil fields. They tell us to tighten our belts while flying in private jets. But it's not us. It's not ordinary people, be it in Burnley or in Bangladesh, who are fueling this crisis. It's big business. It's the richest 1%, who emit more carbon than 2/3 of the world combined. And it's these same corporations that are polluting our air, poisoning our water, and devastating our lands. The same corporations who exploit and extract, who've hollowed out our public services, attacked our rights, and demanded wage cuts, whilst raking in tax breaks and subsidies for themselves. It's welfare for the super rich and austerity for the poor. And now they dare weaponize inequality against climate action. They're bankrolling fascists and far-right extremists to divide us. And we have to be clear. We need justice. We need to make the polluters, the profiteers, and the billionaires pay. Because climate justice is economic justice. Racial justice is social justice. And the communities on the front lines, be it working class communities here or in the global south, are the same ones who have always been the ones that have been neglected. Decisions made for them, never by them. But let me tell you one thing. Those people, those communities, they're not victims. They're our hope. They're the ones who fought and won every right that we enjoy today. From decent pay to our NHS, from pensions to our green spaces, from our right to vote to our right to organise. And once before in our history, after the horrors of this war, of the World War, ordinary people stood up and said, we are the many and they are the few. We demand the right to live with dignity. And that call must echo, not just in Britain, but across the world. The right to live with dignity and in harmony with our planet, for decent housing, for energy owned by us, owned by our communities, for clean air, for the right to food, for good transport, for good jobs, union jobs, green jobs, and for thriving communities where we live with nature, not against it. So yes, it's time to tax the super rich. Not because it's radical, but because it's fair. Because every pound in a billionaire's offshore account is a school not built, is a hospital underfunded, is a wind turbine not constructed, is a life lost to killer heat and flood. We need wealth taxes. We need corporation taxes. We need to fix the rigged economy, the debt and trade, and we need to end this fear of fossil fuels and once and for all. This is a crisis we're not going to be able to buy our way out of. It is a fight. It's a fight between the many and the few, between life and profit, between justice and greed. So I want to end by saying to you, we can't let them divide us, not by race, not by border, and not by fear. Our solidarity must be global. Our movement must be bold, and our message must be loud. We must all be friends of the earth and enemies of injustice. A movement of movements that makes them pay for the damage, makes them pay for the injustice, makes them pay for the future that they've stolen. Because justice demands it, and the world cannot wait. Solidarity. Thank you.
Yes, one more time for Asad Rehman. And what he says is absolutely right. We cannot let them divide us, because we know that the people united will never be defeated. And we are showing that here today. So, really excited to introduce our next speaker now, someone again I've had the pleasure of working with over the last few years, and someone I have admired, Sarah Calloway from the Women of Colour Global Women's Strike.
Wow, hello everyone. You look fantastic. And we're so glad to be together today. I wanted to start by saying I'm here with my sisters, not only from Women of Color, the Global Women's Strike, but also the All Africa Women's Group, and we work closely at the Crossroads Women's Center. We wanted to add to the demands the Global South, because the Global South is crucial to saving people and the planet. The plunder has gone on for 500 years, and it goes on today, and we must end it. There's been a takeover by corporations, by fossil fuel polluters, and billionaires, and they're fueling war and militarism worldwide. Palestine is central to this. At this very moment, Israel, with UK government support, is turning Gaza to dust. They've killed 680,000 people, 2/3 of which are women, children, and infants. This is genocide. It's reproductive genocide. And finally, the UN and others are calling it out, but it's taking them too long to listen to Palestinian people. If we're anti-racist, if we're really anti-racist, then we have to be anti-Zionist. Because Zionism is apartheid, it's a poison, it's lies that turn everything away from life and away from the movement for caring and for protecting the planet. We know that the destruction of the planet, the land, and the environment is the cause of the so-called migration crisis. It's a crisis because people are fleeing starvation, death, pollution, caused by greedy corporations around the world. And we never forget that 500 years and the merchants of death that have caused it. And we know we have every right to be here. As immigrants, as asylum seekers, our people have worked for 500 years for Britain, and our wealth is here, and we're here to claim it. And we claim that wealth alongside white working class people. And this is a message for those who are being drawn to Farage and the right wing. We have a common goal, and together as working class people, we can get together and we can win and throw out the arms dealers and the killers. Okay, we know that what they did, they destroyed Iraq, and now they're doing it on steroids in Palestine. Tony Blair is one of the people involved in the so-called real estate negotiations going on with Trump. What they try to tell us is either we go along and work with them, or they turn our countries to dust. But we say that's not an option. And that's why people were furious at the obscene spectacle of Trump this week, being wined and dined and bowed down to, while the people of Palestine starve. How dare they? The movement for Palestine is spearheading movements everywhere. We're coming together. We're learning. We're changing. Palestine has united us in many ways. We are millions and billions, and we are growing. We don't forget Sudan, Congo, and other countries in struggle. And we don't forget Haiti. Haiti was first to end slavery. African slaves threw out the slave dealers and formed their own country and made a beacon of hope. And it's victories like that that we hold on to. We know we can win because they won in 1804. Okay, and some victories. I wanted to mention that some of you know Italy has called a general strike in support of the flotilla next week. Fantastic. And their slogan is, "Free Palestine and free us all." The flotilla has been a great breakthrough. 50 countries involved, over 50 ships, and they pledged to go again and again and not be stopped. I wanted to mention Greta Thunberg, who's used her prominence to speak out for Palestine, and that's what we need all those climate people to do, speak for Palestine. Okay, just to mention the trade unions. In Italy, the leaders of the trade union movement who are calling the strike said that Palestine has rekindled our desire for freedom. That's a big step for trade unions. That means they're changing. And that means that we can call on them more and more to put the power of trade unions with the grassroots movement. beginning with women, asylum seekers, and immigrants, but with all of us who need their support. We say the same to women in positions of power. It's not enough to go up the ladder. You have to be there for grassroots people or get out of the way. Okay, a quick mention of Andhra Pradesh, where women, something like 700,000 women farmers, are leading a mass movement to regenerate the soil. And they're working internationally. They're in Zambia at the moment, working with the Zambian communities to spread the word about natural farming. And natural farming can actually save the planet. It can save the environment because it changes everything if you change the way the soil is handled. We're encouraged by the young people and people of color, many who are turning to natural farming and all kinds of land work to restore the land and the forests and the trees and the gardens. Just in finishing, I wanted to call out a few people. Zara Sultana, Zoran Mandani in New York, and Zack Polanski, who I think is here today. These are people who've come out against the billionaires, and they've come out for Palestine. They're working to be accountable leaders, and they've come forward. And they've come out of our movement because leaders don't come from nowhere. They come from the movement. We make leaders, but we have to hold on to them and keep them accountable. But we're seeing leaders who know that our time is coming, and we have to protect and defend them. I would also mention Rashida Tlaib in the US, a congresswoman who calls herself a mother working for justice for all and who always speaks passionately for Palestine. I just finish off by saying, as all of us know, mothers and carers are the absolute pillar and bedrock of the movement everywhere. Our slogan is invest in caring, not killing. It's been our demand for decades, and it really is like that. Either we force them to invest in caring and life, and we build a caring society, or they destroy the planet and the people and kill all of us. That's clear from the way they push AI. They want machines to do the work so they can get rid of a whole set of us, and we're saying no way. I'll just finish by saying that Palestine tells us a lot. Everything is riding on this movement. It's a long haul, but we can do it. We are building, we are widening, we are going internationally from the bottom up and staying together. We finish by saying, free Palestine, free us all. Thank you.
One more time for Sarah Calloway. And such an important piece of this puzzle that we cannot forget. The same people profiting from climate breakdown, profiting from inequality, profiting from the division in our communities are the same people profiting from genocide, war, and the military-industrial complex. We need to make them all pay. And that's why I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Stella Swain from the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Stella.
Thank you so much. I mean, first of all, what a speech to follow. Thank you for that. And it's so amazing to see so many people here today. I'm Stella. I'm an organizer at the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, which is the biggest organization in Europe campaigning for justice for the Palestinian people. And next month will mark 2 years of genocide, live streamed to the world. At least 70,000 people have been murdered by Israel, and many more have been devastatingly injured. Just this week, thousands of Palestinians have once more been forced out of Gaza City under fire from Israeli forces. As we speak, there are people trapped under the rubble. There are people dying on the steps of the last remaining hospitals in Gaza City, hospitals that have been bombed relentlessly by Israel. There are starving children being evacuated in wheelbarrows because they can't even stand to flee. And we cannot become immune to this horror. Every single Palestinian that we've lost is a catastrophe. Every single one of these people had hopes, dreams, loves, a future. Every single one of them was precious, a whole world, and our world is poorer without them. But it is the complicity of our government and our institutions that allows Israel's genocide to continue. Thousands of pounds of British taxpayer money is flowing into the government's shameful arms trade with Israel. It is British-made components that build the F-35 fighter jets that Israel uses to drop 2,000-pound bombs on Gaza. It is the British government that, while hundreds of people in this country are on the breadline, while our National Health Service crumbles, and while we see the devastation of climate collapse creep closer, chooses to bankroll Israel's war crimes and prosecute those who stand against genocide. Shame! And it is the same corporations responsible for the climate crisis that are profiting from Israel's genocide. Barclays, one of the biggest sponsors of climate collapse, invests over £2 billion in companies like Elbit Systems, which provide deadly weapons to Israel. Shame. And we know that the struggle for Palestinian liberation is deeply entwined with the struggle for climate justice. We know that this genocide goes beyond the destruction of life, but it is the destruction of the conditions that make life possible. Fertile soil, clean water, waste infrastructure, access to food, access to power, all those things that life requires and all demands that the climate justice movement holds at its core. But Israel's colonial violence and apartheid not only decimates the land, its ongoing bombardment, its investment in fossil fuels and global companies like Siemens and Chevron is actively worsening the international climate crisis. And in this country, it has never been more urgent that we unite across movements in the fight for justice. Last weekend, fascists mobilized thousands right here in central London. We must respond by building the biggest anti-fascist movement this country has ever seen. We will never give in to their racist rhetoric. We'll never for one moment waver in our solidarity with the Palestinian people, with people worldwide resisting imperialism and colonialism. Because as Keir Starmer shakes hands with war criminals like Isaac Herzog and John Healey grins alongside the ghouls from Palantir, we are building a mass movement. Across the country, people are organizing in their workplaces, in their universities, in every town and city across the country. We've brought hundreds of thousands of people onto the streets for Palestine in 30 national demonstrations, and we are still building. On the 11th of October, we're marching in London again in what we hope will be the biggest demonstration this country has ever seen. I want to see every single one of you there. As the Palestinian BDS National Committee said, it is crucial that we join hands with the climate justice movement to ensure that Israel's regime of oppression does not become a model for a new world order of unmasked brutality and extreme violence. We cannot allow for our lands to be made uninhabitable. and for black, brown and indigenous people to be made dispensable, dehumanized, displaced and killed to serve the projects of colonial, racist and capitalist interests. Not in Palestine, not anywhere. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! See you on the 11th of October. Thank you very much.
Yes, one more time for Stella Swain. And a big thank you to everyone here who's very helpfully let people through. They're laying wreaths on the cenotaph. So yeah, you all were brilliant. You let everyone through. You're all beautiful people. So thank you. So, can everyone still hear me? We love it. So, really excited to introduce our next speaker now. Just returned from Palestine, Reverend Helen Burnett.
So much. Hello, thank you. I hope I can be heard. I came back from Palestine a week ago, and this is my reflection on the intersection between what's happening today for us and what's happening there. 2,000 years ago, a Palestinian Jew named Jesus of Nazareth, a town which now lies in the occupied West Bank, shared a radical message for the poor. And he shared that message by telling many stories. One of those stories tells of a rich man who dies and discovers that his riches no longer help him as he suffers the torments of hell, while the poor man he ignored, begging at his gate, finds himself in heaven. 1,000 years later, an unknown artist paints onto the west wall of a church in the Surrey Hills a man being tortured, his legs akimbo, over raging flames, as coins spew out of his mouth. This medieval man had not paid his taxes. 600 years later, in the same church, these words are carved. The cry of the poor is extreme and very sore. God grant us to remember. Today, as vicar of that church, I own a T-shirt which proclaims the words of Mary: cast down the mighty, lift up the lowly, send the rich away empty. But my faith is not about heaven and hell. It's about here and now. The struggle we are embarked on as people of all faiths and none to make polluters pay is an ancient and long-standing struggle for justice. But today the stakes are higher than ever before. Today the polluters are culpable for desecration of both people and planet, and it has to stop. Recently, Christian Climate Action, of which I am a proud member, issued a vision statement, a call to the church founded on the radical message of Jesus to be more courageous and more prophetic. A week later, in this wonderful mobilization rooted in love, we have come together to call on those who hold power, who hold purse strings, to be more courageous, more prophetic about lifting up the poor and crushing the profiteers. On the brink of climate collapse, we find ourselves on a path that cannot be reversed. But that shouldn't stop us seeking justice. Justice for those who suffer now and those who will suffer in the future. So yes, Murray Auchincloss, CEO of BP, Wael Sawan, CEO of Shell, corporations like Equinor, Drax, BlackRock, Barclays owe the world a debt. They are the rich men who are enjoying their wealth now, while ignoring the poor man at the gate, the global majority. The extractivist corporations greedily desecrating the earth know what they are doing. This greed is not born out of ignorance. I'd like to introduce the CEO of Shell to my one-time neighbors, whose grandfather, Ken Saro-Wiwa, was murdered for his activism. I'd like to transport the mega-rich to sit at the wet and wrinkled feet of Salma Kutan, a woman displaced by the floods in southern Bangladesh. I want them to explain to the mother of Ella Adu Kissi Debra, whose death was caused here in London by air pollution, why they continue to exploit fossil fuels and do not pay for the damage. But we all know that change is not coming from the top. Today, empire is not interested in people any more than it was in the time of Jesus. So change will come from the grassroots. From those who will not turn a blind eye to the suffering of their neighbor. It is vital that we flow like a river of love more powerful than the sludge of soulless corporate finance, to become a growing mobilization of people demanding justice, that we continue to draw out of the shadows those who have brought us to the brink. All eyes should be on them, not the refugees who were demonized here in Whitehall just a week ago. Today in Whitehall, Jesus would be turning over the tables of injustice. Today we must tell stories that name the real causes of inequality, rejecting the narrative that wants us to turn against each other. Our story is more powerful than the hatred we saw here last week. Our story places the blame with the billionaires, and we need to tell it loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time for Reverend Helen Burnett. And is everyone still with us? Yes. And just remember, if you're feeling tired or anything, we have the accessibility viewing area here. We have well-being and first aid to the side. Don't be afraid to come say hi. We have lovely volunteers. So if any bit of feeling overwhelmed or anything it might be, come say hi, and one of our lovely volunteers will make sure you're feeling all right. But yes, we have about 4 or 5 more speakers left. Some great speakers coming still. You've still got to hear from Gary Stevenson, still going to hear from Dominique Palmer, and more. So you've got some great speakers. Let's stick around. Let's keep the energy going for another 20 minutes, and let's make sure that we allow for these brilliant speakers that we brought here today. And next, I'm really excited to bring in Emily Farley from the Green New Deal Rising group, who've been campaigning against billionaires, campaigning against the wealthy for a long time now, and such a brilliant voice for our youth movement. So, Emily Farley from Green New Deal Rising.
Hello, everyone. I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to all the speakers so far. They've been incredible, and this turnout today is absolutely fantastic. I'm just a Welsh girl living in London, and this is my first ever political speech, which is very exciting. I've just graduated, and I'm currently working 2 hospitality jobs just to scrape by. After months of searching for a spare room I can afford, I'm now being forced to consider finding a 3rd job just to cover my rent. I ask myself almost daily, how is it that me and my friends are in this position when billionaires and corporations are gaining more profits by the day? Who here is on a 0-hour contract or not earning enough? This is exactly why we are here today. Back home in Cardiff, things aren't much better. On my last visit, I found that many of the bus routes have been slashed, meaning nursing staff cannot get to work in the mornings and hospitality and bar staff cannot get home at night. The community centre has been shut down. Private companies rent out my local leisure centre, meaning the public cannot use it. Shops are vacant, and their doorways are sheltered more and more by people sleeping rough. We are the 6th richest country in the world. Billionaires' wealth has raised 1,000% since the 90s. So why is it that we cannot fund our schools, hospitals, and the services that we so desperately rely on? It's because politicians protect billionaires while the rest of us struggle. They point the finger at migrants to distract us, while the wealthy quietly line their pockets. And I see the impact of this in my day-to-day life. The rise of the racist rhetoric and flags lining the streets where I live in East London has been heartbreaking. And I know you'll all agree when I say that we have had enough of the government's lies and propaganda. That's why our youth movement, Green New Deal Rising, have launched their Pay Up campaign. From creating a pop-up youth group outside of one of the city's most exclusive private members clubs, to confronting senior politicians about their cuts to disability payments, to a nationwide day of action targeting billionaires driving climate breakdown, protesting outside Branson's gyms, to Watts Brewdog bars, Candy's luxury flats, and Ratcliffe's Man U Stadium. We've shown the super rich can't hide from public anger. Our movement is building unstoppable momentum. Now, we are taking a laser focus on Rachel Reeves. Her budget in November is a clear crossroads. Will she stand with us, renters, students, workers, those of us who already pay our share? Or will she protect billionaires and CEOs getting rich off our struggles? If Reeves chooses the super rich, she locks us onto a future of rising inequality, crumbling public services, and more floods and heat waves, paving a way to a reform UK government. This cannot happen. So I'll ask you, will you join us on Monday the 27th of October? Hundreds of us will gather in Westminster for our biggest action yet, demanding Rachel Reeves deliver a budget for the people, not for the billionaires. What do you say? Check out Green New Deal Rising on our Instagram, our socials, or join our mailing list for more information on how to get involved. The super rich want us to feel powerless, but together we have power. Fund our futures, tax wealth now.
One more time for Emily. And absolutely listen to that. Do follow Green New Deal Rising. They do incredible work, so give them a follow. And let's keep it rolling. I'm really excited to bring our next speaker on, Dr. Wangari, Director of the Racial Justice Network. Dr. Wangari.
Free, free Palestine. I'm going to start by sharing a quote of a favorite writer, Aimé Césaire, who says, "A civilization that proves incapable of solving the problems it creates is a decadent civilization. A civilization that chooses to close its eyes to its most crucial problems is a sick civilization." I work at the Racial Justice Network, and where we kind of talk about racism, social justice, but we kind of connect the issues and the struggles. And one of the sentiments that we share is migration, and I know people know this here, but I'll say it anyway. Migration is a human right. And to those who don't know, and now I don't want to assume people don't know that here. This is for the others. If you don't want refugees to come to your country, stop creating them. Stop bombing the countries. Stop selling bombs and weapons that destroy the countries. Address historical and systemic harms that continue to manifest themselves today. Reparations right now. I also want to say, stop extracting and exploiting the Global South and supporting puppet leaders who continue your work by entertaining international corporations that continue to serve Western interests. The unfortunate story of how migration is told and what we are seeing right now is half a story of people migrating, and when they arrive here, the criminalization that comes with it. We talk about telling a full story of why we're even here in the first place. It's due to the imperialism, legacies of colonialism that drive people here and the conditions that were there. We're here because our nations were interrupted by colonialisms that destroyed our lands, our livelihoods, and our people. It didn't stop then. The damage was so deep, we are still experiencing the effects of it now. Our nations and ancestors who didn't die when they were taken from us, stolen from us, they died serving imperialism. And this is the wealth, to boost industrialization, the wealth that is here, that people are talking about protecting, we're coming here and taking from them. But actually, our ancestors built this. They suffered for this. The global inequality created then is still in effect now. And our communities are unable to defend themselves. If we talk about the climate issues, they are unable to defend themselves from the climate disasters and are forced to seek freedom and survival by migrating and enduring hard conditions, also boosted by green colonialism. So when we're talking about going green, it's still coming at a cost to the Global South, and we need to consider that as we push for some of these policies and practices. The ones that are unable to stay where they are and are forced to migrate because of these conditions, forced by imperialism, and reach the shores are criminalized and encounter the hostile environment. And the hostile environment, obviously, we kind of talk about in the UK sense, but we're thinking of it, it's kind of grown. It's much more than just a UK situation. So those who dare to cross the channel, drowning, are either forced, the conditions of either drowning, survival, and when you get ashore, right now we're talking about detention, deportation, and if you're lucky enough to get through the border force agencies, you're now put in hotels rooms where you're now introduced to the flag, the British flag, by the local people who are saying they come here and staying in 5-star hotels. So the idea of telling the full story of why people are here in the first place is necessary now more than ever. So in terms of actions that have been, these people have said what we could do. And it's been said, but I'll add again, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to neighbors as well. Talk to your colleagues and burst these horrible stories, false stories that are being shared. We've spoken about the narratives that are being, or the algorithms, I think that was shared before. We need to go beyond that because we know the truth is being held back in the systems. So we have to be the agents, as others have said before me. Expose, defend the most marginalized, expose those who are benefiting from the division and make them pay. I'll end by sharing one story. I was born and bred in Kenya, migrated here, and got exposed to everything else I've been exposed to. But my relatives and my family are still in Kenya. One of my aunties, we call her Del Monte auntie, because she lives in an area Del Monte have and do pineapples, which they export externally or internationally. I was sharing this story with a friend, and I thought, actually, it's okay to share it with you in terms of the reality on the ground in Kenya. We went to visit Auntie when I was last there, and we took pineapples, and she wouldn't have them. The reason she wouldn't have them is because the security forces, this is the Kenyan security forces, do raids on their houses. The people who live near Del Monte, pineapple, they do raids on their houses, and if they're found with pineapple peel, they're beaten. This is a reality because when you look at Del Monte, any area, and what it looks like, the conditions that the workers are in, they're not even allowed to unionize. They are dealing with horrible chemicals. They're not defended. They're not allowed to do anything around this. Del Monte makes about 4.5 billion a year, I think, on the last record I saw. There have been people killed by the security forces, and nobody's doing anything about it. So my point of story or sharing this is the country and most of what was stolen land from people who lived there is still occupied and owned by the Western nationals. And these Western nationals making a lot of money, but not really doing much for the people there. There's also a documentary, for instance, I watched around the battle in Laikipia, and this involves the pastoralists, the Maasai community who owned vast land masses of land. During white settler colonialism, the settlers took the land. They still own hundreds and hundreds of acres of it. And because of a drought and a famine that's continuing right now, they're unable to fend and continue their lifestyle, but they're also in conflict with the people who own the land. Why am I sharing this? Is I need, or at least keep encouraging people to look beyond. We are making them pay, we ask them to pay here, but they need to also, we need to ask them to pay there too, because they don't even respect the rights that they respect here. So when there's been murders, when there's been people killed and their heads chopped off, it's like it doesn't matter, it doesn't make the news. So what I'm also asking people, part of the myth bursting, find these stories, expose them, hold them up to account. Don't let them get away with it. And finally, this also goes to things like flowers. We're talking about climate again. The flowers that we consume and we buy when we give people here, the conditions of where these flowers are growing, there's no water. And the locals who work in these farms, there's more water that goes in these flowers than they can consume in a whole village. And these flowers are then brought here, and we buy them and give them as good gestures. So what I'm again encouraging people is to think beyond, think locally, act locally too. Defend the most marginalized, and yeah, make them pay here and there and everywhere else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wangari. And it's so, so important that we do not forget. Like, people need to understand that narrative. You know, when I say we, I don't mean us individually, but nationally. We drop bombs, we extract wealth, we extract resources from all across the global south. We systematically deny people the right to stay in their homes, and then systematically deny them the right to move through racist and violent border policies. These things do not match, and it is an injustice. But We'll move to our next speaker. We have 3 speakers left, so please do keep the energy going. Now this movement, our second demand, protect workers, not billionaires. This movement doesn't work without our workers and our trade unions. And here, as a representative of 75,000 workers, Max Savage from Unite the Union. Max.
Thank you very much. Now, I've been umming and ahhing about this speech because when you talk about a just transition, it can seem quite complex, it can seem confusing, it can seem like there's a lot going on, but actually I thought about it, and it is obviously simple, which is that workers and communities should not be paying for crises that they did not create. And actually we know who should be is the ultra-rich, because workers at the auto factory in Luton should not be paying for a crisis they did not create. Workers at the Grangemouth oil refinery should not have had to pay for a crisis that they did not create. And workers who are currently potentially losing their jobs at Lindsay Oil Refinery should not have to pay for a crisis that they did not create. But what terrifies me, what scares me, is you have reform politicians showing up at Scunthorpe Steelworks. You have these charlatans giving a story that says that fighting for climate justice, fighting against the climate emergency, inevitably means the destruction of workers and their communities. And that is not true, that is not the case. But Labour are not helping us, because while they extol the virtues of taking action on climate change, they are not doing it. They are not doing it, and instead what is happening is terms and conditions are being eroded, and these charlatans in reform can point towards that. And last week at the Unite the Kingdom rally, you had this amazing sight where you had the world's richest man, not quite wealthy, not very wealthy, the world's richest man, saying that he was on the side of workers, on the side of communities, that he stood there for ordinary people. And I'm not great with finance, but I know that can't be true, because wherever you have obscene wealth, you have obscene deprivation. When you see a private jet, the mirror of that is a crumbling hospital. And these charlatans will show up at workplaces but vote against any improvement in workers' rights. But I have to say to you, it's not enough to point out that they are hypocritical. It is not enough. Instead, what we need to do is we need to build coalitions. We need to build our communities together, because what I love about trade unionism, you have a small audience. If you want to build power in your workplace, you cannot avoid difficult conversations. You cannot help but try and bridge gaps between people. And that is what we need to do. Because I have to say, no one is coming to save us. There will not be a hero, there will not be a knight riding over the hill, there will be no Messiah. Old party or new cannot save us alone. Politicians or union general secretaries cannot save us alone. They can be helpful, they cannot stand in the way, but they cannot save us alone. The people that can save us are the people you're stood next to, not just here, but on your way into work, at work, in your communities, at your churches, at your mosques, at your synagogues. And we need to collectively demand better of our movements. We can't duck difficult conversations. We can't rely on mobilizing the same groups of people over and over again. We have to build power for ourselves. So let's build the fight to tax the rich, to make them pay, and to take back what should be ours. Thank you.
One more time for Max Savage. Bro. And you're all doing amazing. We have 2 speakers left, but you're all doing great, looking great. It's making me feel great, so thanks all. And very excited to bring our next speaker in. So many things I could say. Activist, author, speaker, just, yeah, all-around great person. Our next speaker, Dominique Palmer.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. When I say the people united, you say we'll never be defeated. The people united. The people united. Woo! Thank you all so much for coming out here today. We are living in a time where just this week, billionaires held a banquet and feasted on taxpayers' money in a grotesque display of opulence. Meanwhile, they burn our planet, and migrants and those fleeing unimaginable situations and seeking refuge are being blamed for problems by a racist movement that took to the streets of London only last weekend. Our planet is burning, and billionaires are not only striking the match, but they are adding fuel to the fire. Big polluters have concealed the truth on the climate crisis for decades, invested billions in delaying and opposing climate action, and now they are rigging systems designed to create a global approach to the climate crisis. I don't know about you, but I am fed up of corporations polluting our planet. It is time for them to pay up. This is a fight for our lives. Together, we can fight against the rampant inequality that is causing the climate crisis, while billionaires and corporations hoard unimaginable wealth on the backs of the poorest. The fossil fuel industry, for example, have raked billions in profit while our planet burns and while people throughout winter struggle to choose between eating and heating their homes. And big banks are continuing to fund the expansion of fossil fuels, even though the International Energy Agency and the UN have stated that there cannot be any new fossil fuel projects to secure a livable future. We are already seeing the severe impacts of climate change, flooding in Pakistan and India displaying thousands, typhoons in the Philippines, heat waves in the summer of 2025 being the hottest on record for Europe. There are people who are profiting off of this and playing distraction tactics. They are fueling hatred and weaponizing the issues that people are facing every day. Trying to get a doctor's appointment, living paycheck to paycheck, and struggling to afford another overpriced train ticket. Our government has created scapegoats in disabled people and migrants who have not caused this mess. They are allowing the super rich to continue exploiting people and the planet. Billionaires are committing tax evasions, paying their workers minimum wages that aren't enough to live off, investing in fossil fuels, investing in weapons, and we are not going to sit back in silence and watch this happen. Ithaca Energy, for example, who has a stake in the Rosebank oil field, has just made $1.1 billion in the first half of 2025. And boo indeed. And much of these profits will flow to Delek Group, an energy giant operating in illegal settlements and who provide fuel to the IDF at a time when Israel is responsible for genocide. Profits from exploiting oil in the North Sea should not be benefiting countries committing human rights atrocities and a live streams genocide. I urge everyone here today to not be limited in our visions. Why shouldn't everyone live in dignity? Why should we sell our futures on this earth to the highest bidder? No more. The climate crisis is linked to what we face in society. Climate justice is racial justice, social justice, gender justice, LGBTQ+ rights, and liberation for all. And make no mistake, there is a beautiful future waiting for us to claim it. We can ensure a livable and thriving future, one where the well-being of our communities and our ecosystems are prioritized.
where we live in harmony with the earth that sustains us. There are so many benefits to climate action that those profiting from the crisis don't want people to know. Environmental justice requires that all have the right to a healthy environment, and therefore we need equity in our solutions. They want us to believe that we have no power, but it is a radical act of defiance to know that we do. We do have power, and we are already changing things. Collective liberation doesn't just happen, it is built by people. And bravery is not about acting in the absence of fear, but in spite of it. And the reason that I, as a young black woman, stand in front of you here in the UK today is due to my ancestors and those who paved the way before me, who stood in the face of injustice, who did not stay silent in the face of adversity, who showed up, and because of the people who are making history every single day. And we can choose to move with compassion and love and show our humanity. If we don't speak out and continue organizing now, then when? Keep your heart soft. Hold on to your humanity. Do not lose sight of the fact that there is resistance everywhere. I mean, look at all of you. This is beautiful. Us who choose life and justice, we are the majority. And a quote by Arundhati Roy that I love is, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way, and on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." But you have to believe it, to organize for it, to build hope. They will not strip us of our joy and our communities we hold dear. Our love and our organizing power will always ring louder than their hatred and division. Tax the super rich, protect workers, not billionaires, make polluters pay for these crises they have caused, and free Palestine, Congo, and all oppressed people. The people united! The people united! Thank you all so much for coming out.
One more time for Dominique Palmer. Are you guys ready for our final speaker? Are you guys ready for our final speaker? Great, I'm not going to waste no more time. You all know him, economist, YouTuber, and also another legend to grace our stage, Gary Stevenson.
It can be difficult to stay positive at times like this. I struggle sometimes. The vast majority of the country wants a wealth tax. Every single poll shows it. Every time there's a poll, overwhelming majority supporting a wealth tax. Even the majority of conservative and reform voters supporting a wealth tax. And yet we have a government, desperately unpopular, urgently in need of money, limping towards losing the next election, stubbornly, stupidly, refusing to even look at the only policy which could save their economy and save their future. When that happens, you can feel like all of your avenues are blocked off, like there's no way to go. Like you don't live in a democracy, like even if all of the people in the country demand something, the government's going to refuse it. It can feel like you don't have any power, like you don't have a voice. What I want to tell you today is, you have power. The opportunity in front of you is enormous. This government is going to fall. This leadership is going to fall. I would be surprised if they lasted a year. There will be a new Prime Minister. And when that new Prime Minister comes in, he or she will have to say something. They will have to have a story about the economy. They will have to have a story that is new, that is exciting, that is different. The public will not accept more of the same. What will that new story be? When that new Prime Minister comes in, he will have to look around at the ideas lying around on the economy, and he will have to pick something that can save that political party, that can save his future, that can save the economy. We have to make sure that when he comes in, the obvious choice is taxing the super rich. And I'll be honest, I think we can do it. Because they don't have any other good options. They don't have any other good options. A new Prime Minister will come in, desperate for ideas. Our job is very clear. We need to make it unbelievably, painfully obvious that the best choice for economic policy for the new Prime Minister is taxing the rich. But we are not the only people that know change is coming. The billionaires know change is coming as well. And they are going to be telling stories to your communities, wherever you are from, for a different vision for the future. They will be trying to sow division between you and your friends and your families and your communities. Don't accept it. They are going to try to make you hate your friends and your families and communities. Don't accept it. And these guys, they own the newspapers, they own the radio stations, they own the TV channels. The only thing that we have that they don't have is you. So that is the power that we have to use. Listen, the real hard work is not today, it's not coming here. Thank you all for coming, but the real hard work starts tomorrow when you guys go back home to your friends and your families and your communities. You need to make it unbelievably, painfully, extremely clear to all of the people that you know that the reason their living standards are getting worse is because of growing inequality. And if they want their future families, their kids and their grandkids to be able to afford houses, food, heating, financial security, the only way to deal with that is dealing with growing wealth inequality. And the only way to deal with that is taxing the billionaires. So listen, that's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to go home to your communities. I want you guys to resist hatred and division. And I want you to educate your families, your friends, your communities. The only way to protect your futures, your wealth, is to tax wealth and not work. Listen, change is coming. I guarantee you, you're going to see big change, political change, economic change in the next 10 years, okay? The future is there to be won. It's you against the billionaires. Protect your wealth, protect your communities. Go home and stand with your friends and families, yeah? Stand together. Don't be divided. You're going to need each other, all right? Tax wealth, not work. Thank you.
One more time for Gary Stevenson. And we have to remember those words. The hard work does not end here. The hard work starts here. This is the easy bit. We've all come out here today. We've had a great time, but this is the easy part. The hard part is us going back to our communities, organizing, having conversations, and turning that tide. And then we'll be back here and show that this movement is twice the size next time, thrice the time, thrice the size the time after. So for now, just thank you to each and every one of you, the 97, 8, 99, 100 organizations who all got on board and help us organize this today.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, everyone. That's the end of the day for us, but obviously the beginning of the road for Make Them Pay. We are going to make this happen. So get home safe, be slow, look after yourselves. Remember what Gary just said. We are going to need each other. So thank you so much for coming out today. Let's make them pay.